Hello there, and welcome to the How to Market Your Horse Business podcast. I'm so glad you are joining me here today. As you've likely guessed by now, my name is Denise Alvarez. I get to host you here on the podcast. And before we dive into today's episode and I introduce you to the guests that I cannot wait for you to meet, I am going to briefly introduce myself just in case we are new friends, and then we'll dive right in. Now, as I said, my name is Denise, and through my business, Storm Lily Marketing, I get to help dream-chasing horse business owners like yourself to get the clarity you've been craving so that you can build and grow your business in a way that meets your definition of success and from a place of purpose. Now, I do this primarily through business coaching and then education, such as this podcast, and I have some online learning resources for you also. But all that I do, guys, is so that you, as an equestrian entrepreneur, can be out doing what it is you love to do inside of the equine industry. I want to help you do more of that. And so here on the podcast in particular, you can always expect a mix of step-by-step strategies, essential how-tos, and entrepreneurial mindset shifts that will help you not only see what's possible for your business, but I'm also here to guide you through that process so you can make it happen. And today we're doing that by way of having a wonderful conversation with Chelsea Lothrop, an equine photographer that if you are on my email list, I introduced you to not too long ago. And I'm excited to now have her on the podcast. Now, you'll hear just a bit when she and I start talking that I've actually known her for a while, back when I had a membership that helped horse business owners specifically with their social media content. Chelsea was in that. And I think we discovered the year. I think I put it on there. But it has been so fun, therefore, to get to watch her journey since that time and see how she has continued to lean in to her big dream and really do more of what she loves doing the most. And as you will hear, it has required some scary choices, some bold moves, and frankly, the types of decisions that many equine business owners don't take and don't step into, right? Because it can be scary, because it can be uncomfortable, because there are unknowns. But the thing that you will hear from Chelsea that is like the throughput of her story is this willingness to grow and choose to grow through the things that actually other people may choose to run from. And regularly learning and growing is a part of why she is where she is today. Personally learning and growing, professionally learning and growing. And so I cannot wait for you guys to get to meet her. So before we get in there, I'm going to tell you this because you guys are not used to hearing me keep things that I typically would edit out. Keep my mess ups. Let's be honest. In the podcast, I typically edit it out for simplicity's sake. But especially as I thought of this episode and what it means and how we're talking about making choices that can seem scary. And sometimes for people like me who are shedding perfectionism, we don't want to leave in the messy parts. But in this interview with Chelsea, I literally lost my train of thought. And I had a question and it just left me. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to leave that one in here because I think it's important for you guys to see and be reminded that it can be messy and that can be okay. And we can still use those things even when they feel a bit messy because it keeps the human side in it. And especially with podcasts, right? There's a place for AI, there's a place for ChatGPT, but there's also a need for human connection. And podcasting and having these interviews and getting to talk to you guys in this way is a lovely way to do that. So I'm keeping that human element in there. Now, another really great way to be connected with fellow humans, especially as equine entrepreneurs, is in my brand new small group coaching experience. This week, I want to remind you that enrollment is open. So I promise you, I am on the edge of pushing play on Chelsea's interview for you, but I want to give you a heads up. I'm going to share a little bit more about the Business Barn Collective at the end of this episode after you hear from Chelsea, but I just want you to hear it now as you're listening to the intro that you have until the end of Friday, December 12th, 2025 to enroll in the Business Barn Collective. And so if you are craving that community that understands what it's like to grow your business in the equine space, to wear the CEO hat while running out to the barn, all of those elements, and who really wants to talk about real strategy and diving into growing your business and making these hard choices like we talk about with Chelsea and having the support to do that, having the accountability to do that, then I would love to invite you to check out the Business Barn Collective. If you just head straight to STORM, Lily, LILY.com/collective, you will get directly to the page where you can join. Okay. So head there and then enjoy this podcast interview with Chelsea. I will see you on the other side. Okay, Chelsea, thank you so much for joining me here on the podcast. I am so grateful.
Thank you so much for having me. I've listened to you for years. I still remember the very first time I listened to you. So this is really exciting. Kind of a
That's
full circle moment.
right. Oh, that's so cool. We were just talking before about how it's been years, and I looked and I think it was April 2022, which is amazing when we first even connected. So
Yep.
I love getting a front row seat to your journey. And even it's kind of been like a second row seat because we haven't always been connected, but I'm always connected and watching you on social, even when we weren't in touch. So I'm excited for everybody to get to meet you, hear your story, and learn from your experiences. But before we get to those things, can you first tell us a bit about you, share some of your background, your love for horses, your love of photography, and how you got to what you're doing today?
Sure. So I'm Chelsea Lothrop, Chelsea Lothrop Photography. I'm an equine photographer. I primarily do private client show photography now. That's kind of become my niche, and that's what I've always wanted to do. Started out more in portraits along the kind of traditional side of things, but now I'm finally doing what I really had the giant goal set for a long time ago. I've been riding since I think I started when I was 11 or 12. So horses have always been part of my life. Um, the photography kind of came in a little bit later. It's actually kind of silly how I got into it. There was this game called Horseland. I was like 13 years old, and there were a bunch of people on Horseland that kind of used it as like a personal blog almost. And they had cameras and they would take pictures of their horses and like their day to day barn life, kind of like a journalistic style thing. And I just thought it was so cool. So I had begged my parents for a camera and I got a camera. And I became that kid at the barn that was just taking pictures of everything all the time. Like I documented every day. We had the horses at home at one point. I was out taking thousands of pictures a day just of the horses, like turned out. And I just always loved it. Um, and then about that time, my mom she booked an appointment, or not an appointment, but like a little bit of a mentorship kind of with an equine photographer that did a lot of show photography, portraits, everything along those lines. So I got to go do that and kind of do that for a day. She let me shoot with her camera a little bit, and it was so cool because it
That
was
is
like,
so neat. And you were a
it was
teenager
really
when you
cool.
did that.
Yes, I was 14,
That's
I think, when I met Melanie, and she was
that's
the
amazing.
photographer yeah. So it was just really cool. And then that just kind of it planted the seed in my mind of someone actually can make a job of just doing this, because I always thought a photographer had to do weddings and family portraits and like every kind of thing. And that just wasn't really where my interest lay. So yeah, that's kind of how it started. And then I started my business officially in 2020 is when I really kind of kicked things off. And then it's kind of gone from there. You've seen it kind of evolve in many different ways.
I love that. So tell me, when you like graduated high school, when you said you told me earlier that you had gone to college. So I know people are like, she didn't say that. Yes, we talked earlier. Did you go to school like thinking I'm going to college, but this is what I'm going to do is be an equine photographer? Like you had that in mind?
No, I was an English major,
Okay.
which is funny because I didn't wanna be a teacher. I didn't I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do with it. I knew I loved reading and writing, and that was just I was just kind of following my dreams at the time. I had kind of put the photography on the back burner a little bit. I think I still had some doubt in my mind of, the fact that you could actually make a career out of it. Even though I had seen someone do it, I was like, "But
Yeah.
that doesn't mean I'm gonna be able to do it." So,
Hmm.
it was in the back of my mind always, but I wasn't actively pursuing it when I went to college.
And then when did that shift for you?
Um, let's see. I was 21 when I moved to Connecticut, and the family I was staying with at the time, they had horses, and the horses. I grew up in Arizona, so very desert,
Oh,
very like
okay.
not picturesque necessarily. And I came out here and I'm like, it's so green. These horses are running around in this pasture. This is going to be such a great thing to take photos of. I hadn't taken my camera out in years. And I was like,
Oh,
let me just
wow.
go grab it. And I started taking pictures just for fun of the horses that were turned out there, just like I did when I was younger. And it's like
Hmm.
how it kind of got sparked. And then it just kind of snowballed. I just became that person again who was always at the barn taking pictures of horses.
Uh-huh. I love that. And so what point in that process where you're like, "Oh, maybe this should be a business?"
Gosh, that was probably it was probably still 3 or 4 years after that. It took some time. It was kind of, I had taken my camera out and I was taking pictures and I was doing all the stuff for fun. I would go to horse shows and, like, take pictures of my friends for fun. And, I had friends being like, "Well, you should start selling these." And that's also a big no-no in the show industry. Don't go and take photos and sell them. Like, talk to the
Mm,
official photographer first.
yeah.
So I was just doing it for fun. But when people started saying you could charge for these, I was like, maybe I should just look into it and play around with it. And um, so I did, and I started offering just portraits for kind of like dirt cheap, which is not necessarily the best way to go into it. That was a lesson learned. Um, but yeah, so that's it started. It was probably 3 or 4 years after I had picked up my camera again that I actually decided to start pursuing it really.
Okay, and so I'm curious because I know I've had the blessing of working with a variety of different photographers and everyone's journey is so unique and I love that. And I also know that there are a lot of photographers looking at people like you now and some of the others that I've had on like Phyllis Burchett, Cara Taylor Swift, Shelley Paulson, different ones that they look at it and think, "Oh, I can do that and it can be my full-time job and it's a snap of a finger." And from what I've learned listening and talking to people is that taking that interest and turning it into full-time income is quite a journey. Was this and if you're like, "Denise, wait, that's one of the later things I'm going to share in your questions," then please feel free to say, "I'm not there yet." But I'm just curious, like that part of going, "I'm going to just do some portraits," to saying, "This is going to be my full-time gig." Was that a long process for you, or did it actually kinda snowball quickly, or what did that look like?
It was a long process. The funny thing is I always say it snowballed, and I mean, it kind of did, and when I look back, it feels like it just happened so quickly and everything's been going boom, 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 but really it was like 2017-ish when I started taking pictures again, like
Mhm.
portraits and stuff to theoretically sell and all of that. So when I think about it, that was like 8 years ago. So it does take time and you don't realize how much time has passed once you get there. So it's worth it. It's worth being patient. I didn't think so
Yeah,
at the
so
time.
good. Mhm.
Because I remember at that point I had reached out actually to the photographer I did that mentorship with when I was 14. I had just sent her a message on Facebook and said like, "Hey, I just wanted you to know I picked up my camera again. I was so inspired by you. Like that was a big turning point for me that I could see that someone did this." And she's like, "That's amazing." And we actually started chatting a little bit. And I said, "I would love to make this a full-time job someday." And she says, "You absolutely can." She's like, "It's probably about 5 years out, at least like think about it's going to take time." And I remember thinking, I don't even want to do it if it's going to take 5 years. Like, I don't want to wait that long. And now I'm like so glad that I didn't listen to that little voice because like the time's going to pass anyways. You get to decide where you're going to be in 5 years. And I would have been in a very different place if I had decided not to go for the long haul.
Oh, that's such a good word. That's such a good word because for sure when we start businesses, photography or not, we
Mhm.
have that picture in our mind of what we want it to look like. And the people that are willing to say, "I'm gonna be in it, and if it takes 5 years, that's okay." It doesn't mean it
Mhm.
always will, but it's okay if it does because this is what I want.
Yep.
That mindset is so different, so very
Mhm.
different.
Yeah.
So, I have one more question on that journey, and then I will ask you the other questions that I told
Yeah.
you would come, but I'm like, I'm all into stories because I believe like that, like those nuggets will come out of people hearing your story and people getting to learn from those experiences, and I know they can see themselves, photographer or not, in this journey and in this process. So, my other question for you actually, I'm not gonna lie, Chelsea, it left because I got excited about what you said about the other things, but that's okay. See, that's how it works. We all have those
It'll
moments.
come back around.
So, I will write that one down when it comes back because it was such a good one. But it'll come back. For the moment, let's talk about that. You've gotten to the point, you built the business. Now, oh, that's what the question was. That journey piece, the show piece, right? So again, you went from taking pictures of horses in the field to taking pictures at shows. Now, did you grow up showing and that was a part of your story and you grew up being really involved? Or like, how did that become the thing that you would enjoy?
Yeah, I grew up showing. Like I said, I grew up in Arizona, so I was on the West Coast, and I showed on the hunter jumper circuit. I did mostly equitation and jumpers. So from the time I was probably 13 until I graduated high school, I was competing, and that's where my love of it came from. I never competed at the levels that my clients do. I never would have thought that I would even get to rub shoulders with a lot of these people, but so it's pretty cool. But yeah, that's where the love came from.
Okay, and so then when you were in Connecticut, it was just natural for you to be connected and get into that world again.
Yep, yep, I started riding again. It took me a couple years after I moved to Connecticut to start really riding again. I had lost my horse, my high school Heart horse that I had.
Mm.
He passed away shortly after I moved to Connecticut, and I hadn't had a chance to bring him to Connecticut yet. That was the plan, but he was getting older, so, he passed away, and I took a little bit of a break from riding because I was just like, "I just need a minute to settle." I just moved across the country. It was just a lot. But then, yeah, I got back into riding. And even before I was riding, I was, like I said, out in the field taking pictures of the horses because I just thought it was so pretty and fun.
Absolutely, it is. I love it. Okay, so that is the big picture story. Now I want to get a little bit more nitty-gritty and talk about the business building, business growing side of things. And of course, just like any entrepreneur, I know that you've had different challenges along the way, things that have been opportunities for growth. So, what I would love to know is some of those challenges that perhaps surprised you or pulled or pushed you or stretched you in different ways in this journey for you.
So I think for me, getting into the creative side of it, I had the creative dream. I'm just going to be an artist. I'm going to perfect my craft, and then the wealth will come afterwards. And I knew logically that there was a lot more that went into it on the business side. I didn't quite know how many hats I was going to be wearing yet until I got thrown into the fire. There was so much that I needed to learn in terms of marketing and education and figuring out how to find your ideal client and just all of the things that you hear those buzzwords, but don't necessarily think about the practical steps you take to put them into action. So I knew that I needed to define my ideal client. I knew that I needed to come up with a business plan and a marketing plan, but I was like, how do I actually even do that? Like, what are the steps that I take? It all felt so like abstract and hard for me to put down on paper. So that was a struggle for me. I was very lucky that I was still working full time when I was going through all of this. So I had some wiggle room for trial and error. I wasn't fully relying on myself for income yet. So that was fortunate. Um, but and that's on the photography side, but I think that can be applied to anyone in the horse world because you could be the most wonderful, talented, gifted trainer. You could be so great with horses. You still have to be able to manage the business side of things, even if that just means going, hey, I know that I'm not good at XYZ. Let me outsource. Let me find someone who is good at that and bring them in so my business can be whole.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. I think that's so, so true, and you're right. There reaches a point, right, where your talent can take you so far when it
Mhm.
comes to business building, right? So it's if you wanna just work for somebody else and just do that and be the technical person, but when you want to actually be the business owner and grow your business,
Mhm.
you're right, it's a completely different game,
Yeah,
that's really necessary if you want it to be sustainable and if you want it to grow, for sure. Are there any
absolutely.
other challenges in that light that have been come along for you?
Yeah, I struggle so badly with imposter syndrome, so
Mm.
badly. And that's something that I mean, from the time I was a little itty bitty kid, that's just I've always played the comparison game and I've always struggled with that. And in the equine photography world, social media is such a big thing. So I'm following all the photographers that I look up to. And I have to really, really focus on making sure that I'm following people that I'm inspired by, not people that make me feel worse about myself, not by anything that they're doing wrong, but just by me going, "Oh my gosh, they're so brilliant, I could never."
Yeah.
So, that's been a big thing for me is, like, keeping my eyes on my own paper kind of.
I really appreciate your honesty on that because I do think that honestly, that's something we all struggle with. And it is highlighted for sure in this world of social media.
Mhm.
But I can just tell you of others that I've talked to that people would look at and say, wow, she's so successful. And then they're saying, I struggle with imposter syndrome in comparison, just like anybody else.
Yeah.
It's normal, but it doesn't mean we have to accept it. So I love that you're like, yes, I'm normalizing that. And then saying, here's what I do to deal with that and hit it head on. Are there other things that you perhaps along the way have learned or books you have read or things that have helped you in this process of like figuring out how to like get on the other side and conquer imposter syndrome?
For me, it's been such a smorgasbord of like podcasts and books. I got very into like mindset work. There's so many books that I've read, and
Yeah.
every time I go to think of them, I can't like think of the name.
There
It
wasn't
all
just one that was like the game changer. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many. There is one called The Artist's Way, which I really like, but that's more specific maybe um to the artistic side of it, but there are things that you could apply to anything. But that one really for me was great about like I said, kind of the eyes on your own paper, focus on what you're creating, whether that's the photography you're creating or the connections you're creating or your training methods. I that book I loved. That was a big one for me. But um, like I said, it's been a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
If you see me
Uh-huh.
with headphones on, I'm probably listening to some kind of business or mindset podcast, almost always. Mel Robbins, we all love Mel Robbins. She's a big one
Mhm.
for me.
Mhm. Oh my gosh. Yeah, same. I'm a huge fan of podcasts and audiobooks recently. I was kind of anti-audiobook for a while because I'm a note taker or an underliner and a highlighter, but then my bookshelf is so dang full of
Yeah.
books that I'm probably not going to read a second time. It's just how I like to process it. So there are some books that I've said, okay, I will do audio on that and then I don't have to have it on my bookshelf. So, yeah, same. But yes, Mel Robbins, have you read any of her books by
I
chance?
read
I
The High
haven't.
Five
So
Habit. I
okay.
haven't read the Let Them theory yet.
Yeah.
I want to, but I haven't read that yet. But I read The High Five Habit and I loved it. I just think she's brilliant. She has such a good way of like hyping you up without it
Yeah.
seeming super over the top and like fake. Like she
Yeah.
seems like she actually,
Feels genuine.
which is
Yeah.
really cool. So I love
Okay. What is the high five habit? What's the premise of that?
So she has this habit every morning. You look at yourself in the mirror and you give yourself a high five and you just go, today's going to be great. And it just brings in that energy. And it sounds and she even says, she's like, this sounds so silly and ridiculous and like it
Uh-huh.
could do anything. It actually does. Like I notice a difference when I do it because you're like hyping yourself up. Like you get the energy of the high five and you're like, you're
Yeah.
going to do great today. Like this is going to be awesome.
Okay, that I actually had no idea that's what you were gonna say. I was like, I asked you, I put you on the spot for the summary of it. So thanks for that. That is
Yeah, of course.
interesting. I'm gonna look that up. So her reels have been showing up on my feed recently of her talking about this is what I thought you were gonna talk about with the five. I don't know that she calls it anything yet, but maybe it's her next book. Who knows? But counting to 5 or counting down from 5.
Yeah.
So basically, like to give yourself only 5 seconds to make the decision that you're not wanting to get out of bed, go for a walk or whatever, instead of extending the decision time. And if you make the decision in 5 seconds, you're more likely to make the
Yep.
uncomfortable choice. Yeah. So that's another. So I thought, oh, maybe that's what high five means.
Yeah.
So
I think
yeah.
she calls that just the 5-second rule, and I use
Oh,
that too.
see,
Like
I knew it was called
when
something.
my
Yep.
alarm goes off in the morning, I'm like, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I love it. And you're right. Those little things like that actually compound over time. So, in so much of what you even just said, like the imposter syndrome and addressing that is mindset. And then getting to decide, like, we get to make the decision when that feeling comes up, right? We get to have the awareness of that and then make the decision, whether it's social media, whether it's at the show. I mean, I don't know. Does that ever come up like at in person things? Because you're at shows a lot and in person, or is it mostly just social media?
It's mostly social media for me. I mean, I think I'll do it internally in my head at shows sometimes, like comparing myself. Like this is kind of specific to show jumping photography, maybe. But like if I get to a ring and I've chosen the certain jumps that I'm going to photograph for my clients, and then I
Mhm.
look over and there's a photographer I admire who's on the other side of the ring, I'm like, I bet the photos they're gonna get from over there are gonna be so much better than mine. Like, I bet they picked that spot. I bet they think I'm being stupid for standing in this spot. Like, it's really
Yeah.
easy for me to spiral. I'm kind of a ruminator, so I have to always check myself on that because it's pretty much always coming up in my mind. I don't think I show it because
It's normal.
people always say they're like, I would never guess, and I'm like, I guess it's good that
100%.
I that I hide it, but it's
Yeah.
always there.
Yeah. I
Mhm.
think it's important for people to be able to normalize that.
Yeah. Yep.
That is there we go. Um, because yeah, seeing you there because honestly, you are probably also that person for somebody else. You know what I mean? Like, and I
Mhm.
get to work with photographers, like I said, that are top level photographers, and they are that person for somebody else, and yet they still have mindset things they have to work on their own. So you're probably that person that someone else is looking at saying, "Oh, she probably picked that place," and all these things, right?
Yeah.
But that's because it's like you said, it's internal work.
Mhm.
And if you're doing a good job on the internal, then it doesn't show on the outside. So you're obviously addressing it front on. But honestly, you said that's just for show jumping, but I bet that example for people that are listening, like that could apply for me because I mean, I'm about to be doing a group coaching program that I'm launching right after we finish this interview. And there are other group coaching programs that exist in the world. There are other group coaching programs that exist in the equine industry, right? So it's the same thing. You can sit and look at 20 landing or 20 sales pages and compare and feel
Mhm.
like they're going to do all of these things different or better than me. But then, like you said, we lose sight of our why. We lose sight of what we bring to the table and what we have to offer to the world. If we're focused on that, then we're not doing the thing that we're called to do.
Yeah. Yep.
Any other challenges before I bring you to talk about marketing? One of my favorites.
I think those were the 3 big ones that I had that popped right into my head
Yeah.
when we started talking about it. So, yeah, those are the big ones I think for me.
Okay, so I would love to know about just the marketing side of things then, especially, which that's where we first connected was when you were kind of dialing in on that ICA and who you really, really wanted to go after and what that dream goal was. But you've done a lot really well in the way of marketing your business. Social media is definitely one example, but not the only example. And marketing, of course, is not only online, right? There's so many aspects to that. What has that looked like for you to actually put your marketing hat on, and why has that actually felt important in this process?
Yeah. So I always think I'm like not the best person to talk about this because so much of it has just been learning as I go, but I know that's how it is for a lot of people. So for me, like I said, I was really lucky when I started my business and I decided that I was going to do this. I was still working full time, so I had some wiggle room there to like mess up if I had to. And I was still working at the college at the time, so I was able to take some marketing classes and business classes, and that's where I
Oh, that's
kind of learned.
awesome.
Yeah, so that's where I kind of learned, okay, I need to really have an ideal client avatar and I need to have a business plan. And I even went on to Google Sheets and I like got a business plan template and I like filled it out and all that stuff. But I think so much of it has just been little things that I picked up along the way. Like I said, listening to podcasts. I remember I first started listening to your podcast the first time I ever was shooting at WEF, which is Winter Equestrian Festival down in Florida, which was like my big dream. And I was working for another photographer at the time. And I said, okay, I want to do this on my own one day. What do I even do? Because at the time I had a lot of portrait clients, but no show stuff. And I knew that I wanted to get into the show stuff. So I said, all right, how do I get in front of these people? And a lot of that I realized was the in person marketing and just being around it. So luckily, a lot of that for me happened organically, just by putting myself in those situations always. Like, always put yourself where the ideal clients are, and that always felt so abstract for me when I heard people say that. I was like, "Well, how do I know where my ideal clients are?" Well, they're at horse shows. Like, if I wanna shoot at horse shows, they're at horse
Yeah.
shows.
Mhm.
Um, and one of the marketing rules that really stuck out to me is people hire people who they know, like, and trust. So if I meet someone and they're a maybe potential client, I'm not necessarily looking at them just as a potential client. Like I'm meeting them and getting to know them. There are people that I started working with like 5 years after I met them. So I think a lot of it was I was so overwhelmed by the online side of things that I was like, well, I better throw myself into the in person thing. And then the online stuff kind of came after. Like I said, I was listening to your that would have been 2022 when I first listened to your podcast, and I was like, "All right, I gotta get a mailing list. I gotta make sure my social media is, like, at least kind of, updated regularly," and, like I said, all of that has kind of been flying by the seat of my pants a little bit still.
So, it's so funny that you say that because I know when people are listening to this and they're going to go find you on Instagram and they're going to be like, dang, she's like, you do a really great job with it. So
Oh
let
my
me
gosh,
just
thank you. Because I imposter syndrome to the max with social media. Like I
It's and especially photographers, that's gotta be an extra level. Like, I'm not a photographer, but I would think that would be even an extra level of putting your work out there in that way. But no, you do it and there's a human element to it. That's the thing I want people to see is the human element to that. But also I want people to hear that permission because marketing is not only online marketing. Now, I do talk a ton, like you said, on the podcast about the online thing because it is there, it is free, and it is the thing that most people are gonna use. After you meet them in person, they're probably gonna Google you, go to Facebook, Instagram, wherever, and then go look for that confirmation that you're a legitimate business, right?
yeah.
So they go hand in hand, but I don't ever want to negate in person because there is such value in those in-person conversations and connections and taking advantage of those in a way, like you said, though, where they're people first. I think
Mhm.
that's so important for people to see because your potential clients and customers can feel the difference. They
Yeah.
can feel when you're looking at them as a potential dollar versus
Mhm.
just a person that you want to support.
Yeah. And I also think there's something to be said for when I go on social media, there's not all the time, obviously, you can't do it with every post, but there are posts sometimes where if I'm struggling with something, I'll put it out there in a way that's maybe relatable, or just say, it's not always easy. Like with the stuff that I'm dealing with now with my health, it's been a little rough. So I think being a human on your social media is a good aspect to it. And I'm so fortunate because I have the best group of clients in the world. And I know that part of the reason is because we connect as humans, not just as I'm their photographer and they're my client. So
Mhm.
I think that's a big thing. I see a lot of, well, I don't want to say anything bad because I don't think there's anything bad about using tools to help you with stat or posts and stuff. But like
Yeah.
you can tell the difference between an AI written post and a post that someone has gone on and written. So,
So true. Yeah,
mhm,
I think that's a great reminder. Yeah, agreed. I mean, and there's a whole episode I'll link to where I talked about ChatGPT and using AI, and it can be a helpful tool, but you can very easily lose the heart and the voice
mhm,
if you're solely relying on that. And that is what we crave connection.
mhm,
We just do as humans. And so that gets lost very
yeah,
easily.
yep,
So yeah, I so appreciate that. Okay, so here's what I would love to know, Chelsea. Pretend you're sitting over coffee, tea, whatever it is you like to drink, over with an equestrian entrepreneur, a fellow entrepreneur who maybe hasn't just started out in business, but just wants to learn about some markers of success, of things that you've learned about success, and building a business that meets your definition of success, which is so, so key. What are some of the lessons learned that you would share with them? I would love to know.
sure. I think my first thing would be to get the boring stuff out of the way first.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
while you still have some steam, while you're still really inspired and you just can't wait to launch this business, look into the things that really make the foundation of your business. Because whatever your artistry is, whether that's training, whether that's as a farrier, whether that's as a photographer, that's always going to be there and that's important, but that's up here and then there's down here. I don't know if this is video or not, so I don't know if people are like seeing this, but I'm laying the foundation.
Yeah.
That's so important, and a lot of people really don't like that, and a lot of people kind of skip around. I know I skipped around a lot of it when I first started, and if I had been full-time at the time, that would have been really tough. Like, there were a couple years when I was starting my business that I think my first year, my business made, like, $2,500. I wouldn't be able to live on $2,500, you know?
Mhm.
Um, so I did. I had to dive in. I had to do the boring stuff. I had to take the marketing classes. I had to make the business plan. I had to, there was a equine photography and like marketing design coach that I did a short coaching program with. It was like 6 sessions, and we like nailed down my ideal client avatar and all that stuff. So I would say at the beginning, while you still have the steam and you're still like really ramped up and inspired, that's when you get the boring stuff out of the way. The fun stuff will still be there. Um,
That's so good. And I'm going to ask you, is the boring stuff also some of the numbers thing? So I know when we talked gosh, I don't remember. I think that was last year that you were even like really getting into spreadsheets and things like that. And
Mhm.
people were asking you because they're like, what is she doing that I'm not doing? Talk to me about that, unless that's one of your other lessons already.
Oh, no, that wasn't, so I'm actually glad you brought it up. That's perfect. So, for me, that's not a boring thing, but I know for a lot of people, that's probably a
Yeah,
really
that's true. That's true. You love that piece. Yeah.
I love it. Like, when I was like, "Oh, I have to run my numbers," like, say less, I'll do it right now.
Yeah.
So but I know for a lot of people, like, the finance side of it is overwhelming and scary and not very fun. And that's something I was working on, and I still need to. It's just been such a whirlwind of a year, but my spreadsheets for people to kinda plug and play, like, you can plug your numbers in there and,
Hmm.
see how things work and just mess around with the numbers and see what's there, and it makes it a little less scary, I think, to see it in front of you. Um, so, yeah, like I said, for me, that's not a boring thing, but for a lot of people it is. So I would say that's definitely part of laying that foundation.
Okay, knowing your numbers. And I think it's interesting that you love it so much, honestly, because a lot of creatives, not to stereotype, but to stereotype in this moment, a lot of creatives are anti data and analytics and things like that. But if you're making decisions based on guesswork and not data, then,
Mhm.
like you said, at the end of the year, you're going to be throwing your hands up going, how is
Yeah.
this possible?
Yeah, and even if that means hiring someone to just do your bookkeeping or do something simple and small like that, you'll
Hmm.
save money in the long run because you'll see like every month, every quarter when I run my numbers, I'm like, "Oh, I could have been a little tighter on that. Oh, I didn't really need to spend that there," or, "Oh, there's an opportunity for this there." If you just look at that, you save yourself so much money in the long run. So if that means paying someone a small amount to run your books and stuff, 100% worth it. It'll pay itself off tenfold.
Yeah, so good. Okay, I jumped in on there. I jumped in. So the
No, that's
first lesson
fine.
is the boring stuff, but I thought if yeah, for some people the numbers is the boring stuff, so I didn't want to look past that. What are some of the other lessons
I
learned?
forget that numbers are boring for people because I find them so fascinating and fun. So, no, I'm glad you brought it up. I think the next big thing I would say we kinda touched on it, well, we touched on it quite a bit, but, like, working on yourself as a person, um, your mindset, and that's not to say like, I'm not sitting here saying I'm perfect and I'm so confident and I'm a guru because 'cause I'm not, but I'm working on it all the time, and I notice a big difference in my business when I'm not. If
Mm,
I'm not staying on top of that, I fall way too easily into the comparison trap, and I will let it stop me from moving forward instead of going, "Okay, I'm falling into this. How do I get out of it?" So, I think staying on top of that is so important, and I think it's hard because that's different for so many people, the way that people do it, like,
yeah.
some people meditate, some people go to therapy, some people exercise, like, there's a million different ways to do it, but trial and error and finding what works for you, I think is so, so important.
That's so good, and giving yourself permission to let it change in the seasons,
Mm,
right? I have a feeling what it looks like for you when you're at home is different than what it looks like for you when you're in Florida.
yes. Oh my gosh, yeah. Florida's like, "Alright, I need to take my 10 minutes in the morning to, like, high five myself,
Yeah.
woosah, we're gonna be fine," and then stretch at the end of the day, that's my self-care.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's okay, and that still has intention behind it,
Mhm.
right? So, I
Yeah.
love that, yeah. So, for people to hear that it can look different in different seasons or different parts of the year or busy seasons, but like you said, when you don't do it at all,
Mhm.
there's a felt difference.
Yeah, it bleeds into your work for sure. I notice
Yeah.
it big time.
Yeah. I'm so grateful too that we're in an era of business building where it's normalized to
Mhm.
talk about mindset and the importance of that. I feel like we really benefit from that in a lot of
Yeah.
ways that even 20 years ago, it did not those conversations didn't exist in the same way.
Mhm.
And we really, really benefit that in a whole bodied experience, you know?
Yes, for sure, and that is one blessing of social media is and now that it's becoming more normalized, you see more people that you look up to that are saying like, "No, I struggle with this too," and it's like, "Okay,
Hmm.
maybe I'm not messing up, like, maybe I'm just going along the same way as everyone else is, and it just feels different because it's me."
Yeah, 100% for sure. Any other lessons or experiences?
Yeah, I would say another big one is make connections with people, not just, potential clients, but people that are doing the same thing that you're doing, because not everyone like, everyone's not competition. There's a million clients out there, like, potential clients out there, and that goes back to the mindset thing of, there's plenty for everyone,
Mm,
and I've gained so much by being friends with other photographers, making connections with other photographers, trusting other photographers, sometimes referring work to other photographers, like it all comes back. And I think going into whatever business you're in with a mindset of these people are in it just like I am. We can learn from each other. We can bolster each other sometimes when we need support. I think
Yeah.
that's so much I think that's so much healthier than coming at it from a everyone's my potential competition, everyone's an enemy standpoint. So I think that's a big, big one for me.
Yeah, that is really so good. Especially, I don't even want to say especially because it applies in every avenue, right? I was going to say especially photographers because I can see being at the show with multiple people thinking, how it would almost feel territorial. It could
Mhm.
potentially feel territorial, I would
Yes.
think.
Yep.
Yeah, so I love going into it with that different mindset, right? That this is collaboration opportunity versus competition. It just opens up doors. And it opens up doors of blessing for your business and blessing for their business,
Mhm.
both ways. So
Yep.
I think that's beautiful. And then there's something to be said too, of course, with connecting people outside of your circle of what you do. I would guess that perhaps you have relationships with other photographers that are not just show photographers
Mhm.
that you can learn from and, collaborate in that way too.
Yep, and it also is great for clients too, like, if I have a client who came to me and was like, "I wanna do a high fashion shoot with my horse," and I was like, "That's amazing, I'm not the girl for that, but I know someone who is," and,
Yeah. Mhm.
like, because I know I wouldn't have been able to do that justice, like, I don't have a background in fashion and all that stuff, and plus I was so slammed at the time that I was like, "It's not gonna work," but I was able to refer her to someone that was excellent at it and did a great job, and that actually, I think, reflects better on you. You're not
Yeah.
potentially losing a client by doing that because you're
Mhm.
providing something to the client that maybe I couldn't provide it myself, but I set her up so that she could get what she needed. And it's not like she left me, like she came back to me for the show stuff because that's what she
Yeah.
knows me for, but she
Right.
still got what she was looking for. So I think it just benefits everyone truly.
That's such a good example because really what you did was in service to her and yourself both,
Mhm.
and the photographer that you've heard him to, right? Because so often as a business owner, out of that fear, right, we'll say yes to every idea that comes our way and everything that they want to do because of what you just said, fear that we're going to lose them. But instead, if it's a better service to say, actually, I am not really gifted at that, but I know somebody who is, and that can deliver exactly what you're looking for. You're right, 100%. It makes an impact on them. It better serves you because then now you can spend your time. Because if you had said yes to that, you would then spend your time on Pinterest, on all the YouTube videos, on all the things, right? Think of all the hours you could spend preparing because you want to do an excellent job, which is a great virtue. But that takes you away from the thing that you said you really wanted to do, which is the show
True.
photography. So
Yep.
it's a beautiful example.
Yeah. Yeah, it worked out really well. And the thing is, like, a couple years ago, I would have said yes to it because I would have been like, "I need to take every opportunity that comes my way," and I'm like, "No, you don't. Gently release it. Let it go. It's fine."
Yeah. And man, oh my goodness, grace and space for learning 100%.
Mhm.
Right. So even as you're saying this for those listening, like there is zero judgment if you're saying yes to something or you've said yes to something right now that you're going, dang it, that was not my specialty.
Mhm.
I've done it as well. I literally had somebody ask me if I could help them early on. Like I'm talking very early on, if I could help them set up their Amazon store links. Like I can't even tell you right now. I can't tell you how many hours I spent watching YouTube videos and doing all these things when nowhere in my goals was it that I wanted to be an Amazon specialist, like that had nothing to do with what I really, really wanted to do. But it was like, oh, it's somebody I need to say yes to now because they're at my door, not realizing that by spending that time doing that, I was then saying no to other potential people that I really did want to work with.
Yep. Yep, and then you're taking up space for people that could be coming in, like you said, yeah, that are
Mhm.
more aligned with what you're doing. I kept saying yes to portraits. I kept getting more portraits and had no bandwidth to do shows, and I'm like, "But I wanna do shows." You have to
Yes.
start saying no to stuff that doesn't necessarily align with what you want, even when it's really hard, because it can be really hard to say no.
Yeah, that's so good. I think that's a bonus lesson there. That's
Yeah.
a bonus lesson there. Were there any others that you had, Chelsea?
I think those were the main ones. The other one is a small one, just not being afraid to outsource things because like,
Mm,
as a business owner in any aspect, it's so easy to be like, "I have to wear all the hats because it feels like you do, and you do wear a lot of hats. Um, but I think there are things that are worth outsourcing, and I'm a little bit hypocritical in saying this because I still have not outsourced some of the things that I want to, but that's one of my goals for 2026 because I did so much this year. I put so much stress on my body that now I'm struggling with it, and it's come back to bite me a little bit, and it will be worth every penny to, get rid of some of that stress. And then you'll do a better job because you're actually doing the things that you're naturally gifted at. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I would say that would be the last little one is don't be afraid to outsource when you're able to.
That is so, so good. I'm going to add one for you that I noted that I was like, I want to make sure she says this. And if she doesn't, I'm going to write it down. And that's make the scary choice. So
Oh,
you said
yeah.
this on the Freelancer Muta podcast. And I thought it was such brilliant advice because, again, of your story reflecting that, right? It was scary to say no to those things. It was scary to step in and say, I'm going to do this full time show photography. To do that big dream goal that you had required making a really scary, uncomfortable choice. So I wrote that down and I was like, if she's not going to say this one when we talk, I'm going to bring this
I
out
can't
for
believe I
her.
didn't think of it, but yeah. No, that's
Well,
like
there are
literally.
plenty of other good things that you thought of, so it's fine. And when somebody asks you to share your lessons learned, for sure, 3 to 5 is not going to cover the bases and the gamut of what you've learned in your years of doing business. So it's totally okay. But I was
No, but
like,
that is like my main doctrine of life is like do the scary thing. If it's gonna bring you closer to what you want, be scared. It's okay.
I love that. And tell me this, was that always quote unquote easy for you? I'm not saying it was easy, but also like it's so close to your heart, probably because you did a lot of work around it.
Yeah, I've done so much work around it, and that's the only reason that, I've been able to do it because it's always really hard for me. I'm not a big risk taker, that's not my thing. I like knowing what the plan is, I like knowing exactly how much I'm gonna make in a month and exactly what my expenses are because 'cause I'm that numbers nerd, and I had to leave so much up to choice. My favorite saying in the world is, "Jump and the net shall appear," and I genuinely believe it. That doesn't mean be reckless, you still have to put things in place, but also, once you put the things in place, even if you don't feel like you're ready, you're probably never gonna feel like you're ready. I didn't feel like I was ready to quit my full-time job. I almost threw up in the parking lot going in to give my my 2 weeks notice. One of I was on the phone with one of my friends who had also just made the leap to a full-time photographer, and she's like, "You just need 1 second of bravery. Just go in there. Once you get in there, you'll be fine." But yeah, it was really scary, and because I knew that I wasn't just leaving my full-time job, I then was taking the opportunity to go to Florida for 3 months in the winter. I'm like and I'm a homebody, so the travel for me I live in Connecticut, so the travel for me was all right. That was a big part of it too. I've had to be very uncomfortable many, many, many times, to get here, but it's been so worth it. I still get uncomfortable, but I still do it, so
And they say it's like a muscle. Would you agree that the more
yeah.
you strengthen it, the more you exercise that, then not necessarily easier it becomes, but also I guess the better word is easier it becomes. I don't know a better word for it.
I think to me, it's not that it becomes easier, I just trust it more, like, I
Oh,
trust
yes.
that it will pan out, and I'm really
Mhm,
lucky my mom's very big about that, like, she always says that, she's like, You've figured everything out up until this point, you'll figure this out too," and
mhm,
so the more you do it, the more you just trust that it really will be okay once you do it, it's still gonna be scary.
mm. Yeah, that's so good. I love that. Okay, well, is there anything else, Chelsea, that you think those listening that are building and growing their businesses should know about building a business in the equine industry?
I think we've covered so many of the topics. I think just to wrap it up for me, and I use the saying all the time because I love it, follow your nose,
Mm.
know what your goals are, and then when those little opportunities come up, make sure your ears are always tuned to them. Because if you're not, if you're spending so much time nervous or worried about XYZ and what so and so is doing, those little opportunities might come up, but they'll bounce right off of you. You got to be tuned to those frequencies. Listen to it and trust it and follow your gut, and it will bring you to places if you do the work. I think that's my main thing. If I had to impart anything onto anyone,
That's so, so good. And that's so I wish that those people going into my reset right now could listen to this episode, but literally I'm recording this and then I have the 3-day mini workshop series that's starting today. So they can't hear this, but I'm going to link back to this as soon as it publishes because that's such sage advice. Yeah, it's so much more than just feelings. Like you said, it's coupled with doing the work, but man, it is listening to that gut and that innate nature of why you started your business, period, and letting that guide you. So, so, so good. I so appreciate you. What a gift of time and gift of knowledge and resources. For those listening who are not already connected to you, tell me where to send them. Obviously, I'll have links in the show notes, but for those who want to open up their phone and do it right now, where can they connect with you?
So my website is just my name, chelsealothrop.com. That's Lothrop, and it's Chelsea with an A. And on Instagram, I'm just Chelsea Lothrop Photo. I do have a Facebook also. I'm not great about posting on it. So anything that you see on my Facebook is just also posted from Instagram automatically. But those are the places that you'll find me.
I love that. Well, let's add a little bonus in there for that because I could hear the, oh, if you go find it there, you're not going to see. And those for those listening, and if you've been on the podcast for a while, you know I say like put your energy and effort. If you dilute the focus, you dilute the results. So if you were trying to focus on both while also doing all of the things that you're doing without outsourcing, it would just not be a great setup. So
Yep.
that's okay. There's permission for people to pick one platform and solely be present there, and you can still experience your version of success in that. I literally had that conversation with somebody this week in a coaching session. So I'm
Yep.
actually
And
glad you said that because I think it gives some people that are listening permission to do that and feel freedom in that.
Yep, and be purposeful about what you pick. Like, I know my ideal clients are on Instagram, so I said, "All
Mhm.
right, we're putting it all in on Instagram," and my Facebook is just kind of a
Exactly.
trickle from Instagram, but yeah, takes some pressure off for sure.
Yeah. So good. So good. Okay. Thank you, Chelsea. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.
All right, friends, I hope you enjoy getting to know Chelsea as much as I enjoy getting to hear her story and learn from her. And of course, you know what I'm going to say. It's not just being inspired and learning that's going to make the difference for you. What I want you to walk away from today is understanding that Chelsea didn't wait until everything was perfect before stepping into a bigger version of her business. She didn't wait until she felt ready because I think she even said in her story, right, that you're not going to feel ready. You just need those few seconds to make that decision and then go for it. And that is the same for you guys, right? Being willing to feel the fear and still take the next step. And so, my question to you as you think about your equine business, and especially the beautiful timing of this, because we are about to head into 2026 and you have this opportunity in front of you to join fellow equestrian entrepreneurs like Chelsea in a small group coaching experience. My question to you is where have you been holding back in your business because it feels too hard or too uncomfortable? Where is it that you have been playing small to avoid the fear that actually comes when we expand? Whether it's expanding your business or expanding yourself personally, right? It may not be about adding more to your plate when it comes to your next level in business. Maybe it's making one bold move, the one that feels scary but is necessary. Okay. I want you to think on these questions. And as you do, I genuinely would love to see you consider the Business Barn Collective. You are here listening to this podcast because you desire to grow your business, right? And for some of you, maybe you have been doing the work and you have been growing, but you're feeling the tension of growing in a silo. It's not that fun. And frankly, you're making decisions based on guesswork rather than strategy oftentimes. But inside of the Business Barn Collective, I am building this based on my new groundwork to growth framework. And so it is not a course, it's not a curriculum that you're going to walk through, but everything inside of this 6-month program is built with this framework in mind, understanding that there needs to be a place to talk strategy, to talk mindset, to talk profit, to talk leadership, and not just talk, but to learn and then take action and have accountability that's going to check in on you and say, hey, how did that launch go? Hey, you were going to start your YouTube channel and do weekly content or monthly content. How's that going? How can we support you in that? That's what's going to happen inside the Business Barn Collective. And so, if that sounds like what you need to make things happen for 2026 in your business, to build from a place of purpose alongside fellow equestrian entrepreneurs, I would love to invite you in to this program. So if you just go to stormlily.com/collective, you will get directly there. Now, I do have show notes for this episode as well. So if you're wanting to connect with Chelsea or go check out the show notes and then get the link for the collective, you can just go to stormlily.com/1 197, I believe, as I say that. I told you about making it messy, right? I think I have the wrong number on my paper. So, friends, forgive me. Go to stormlily.com/197. If it's not 197, that will still get you to my website, and then you can see the most recent episodes. Forgive me. I really want to get this episode into your hands. So I am not pausing this recording to go look things up. I'm saying that's where I want you to go. Okay. Now, guys, we are heading into the end of 2025. So I have a couple more episodes up my sleeve for you. But this is your last real meaty episode before Christmas. Okay. So I want you to go to stormlily.com/collective today. Check it out. See if it's fit for you. If you have questions, email me or send me a direct message. I would love to answer your questions to help you determine if this is the place for you. But what I want you to know is 6 months is going to pass. This is a 6-month program. 6 months is going to pass for you when it comes to growing and building your business. You will end up in June 2026. And my question to you is, what are you going to do in these 6 months that's going to help you lean into the hard, uncomfortable growth process that actually gets you where you want to go? What are you going to do to have that support around you? Aligned support. And what would it look like if you did? Imagine that with me, okay? And then head over there and join me. I would love to meet you there. I will be facilitating the call. So just so you know, as you hear me say small group coaching experience, we are having hot seat calls every month, and I will facilitate that with you inside of your small group of up to 6 equine entrepreneurs. Now, I have a whole video to talk about that aspect on the page when you get there, because I know that many of you hear that and go, oh, but who's going to be in my group? I don't know if I'm going to like them. Will it be a good fit? I hear you. I care. And that's why I am curating this group through an application process so I can hear from you where you're at and get you connected to people that maybe aren't doing the same thing in the industry, but have similar goals and have a similar mindset around growth. Okay. So trust me in that. I am curating this on purpose, but the best way that you can make sure the right people are in the room is to get in the room and then invite other people to join you. Okay. All right. Getting off my soapbox, but I'm so excited about this. And I genuinely want you in the room with me. Okay. So stormlily.com/collective, and stay tuned here to the podcast. I do have some more episodes for you to finish out the year. And I so appreciate you guys. Reach out to Chelsea, if you will. Let her know that you appreciate her sharing her story. And for now, have an amazing day. I'll see you here next time.